Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as Sir Jim Ratcliffe has no time to waste as he looks to implement a stadium plan and potentially a new stadium plan. We'll be talking about that. There's a poll in the chat if you're watching live. What are your thoughts on that? Also, a transfer plan. Apparently Manchester United are going to target players in the last year of their contract in the summer. We'll be going through the top 10 players that are available with 1 year left on their contract in the summer and asking and discussing whether it's a good idea to target those players. There's a reason we're going to do it, and it's because they're cheap. Is that the way to go? Why are we looking at those players because they're cheap? Because actually our financials aren't that good. We'll also be talking about this story that you may have seen today about another bit of interest in Bruno Fernandes. We spoke about it only a few days ago that there was a huge offer that came in January that was rejected. That's the second time. Apparently it's going to be third time lucky for Saudi Arabia in the summer. Will United resist it or will they take it for Bruno Fernandes? Don't know what your thoughts are on that. Also, we're going to be talking about Ten Hag and how he's done at Manchester United in his short time that he's had his best players. Has he been proven right? We'll talk about that as well. So lots to get into. I've got a lot I want to say about the stadium as well. I know Beth did a fantastic video earlier and I was watching parts of it. I was even in the chat, but I do have something I want to say about it. Effectively, don't do it, please, but not because I'm anti-Ineos or anti-change or anything like that. It's just very personal to me. And to be honest with you, on the day of February the 6th, when we're commemorating and remembering what happened in 1958, I was a little bit disappointed that a story came out about a new stadium, to be honest. You can't do anything about that because obviously the club are trying to get things done quickly. But I was a little bit disappointed that came out on February the 6th because you're thinking about Old Trafford, you're thinking about the greats that have played on that pitch, the Busby Babes, and then you get a story about, well, we might move. So I thought the timing of that was bad. You can't always control the timing of it, but we'll get into more detail on that and why some people will be for it and some people will be like me and a little bit worried about it. But before we get into that, I've got my Boohoo Man hoodie on. It's fleece lined. It's a lovely wear in the winter months and I'm feeling nice and snug. Looking forward to a fantastic show with all of you. Of course, Boohoo Man are sponsoring the show. We've got a bit of Man United trivia coming up for you as well. But remember, with the code Goldbridge, by scanning the QR code or going through the link in the description, you can get up to 44% off. 44% off. So you get an extra 10% with the code Goldbridge on top of their ongoing 40% discount as well. So check it out. Loads of stuff you can get there. Kit yourself out. Start looking ahead to the summer or just get yourself some gym wear, five-a-side wear, or just relax wear. I mean, this hoodie for me, I could go to sleep in it if I wasn't so excited about spending the next hour or so talking United with you. And as always, to enjoy the extra savings with Boohoo Man, check out the link in the description, of course, and use the code Goldbridge. But now for that additional engagement, a trivia quiz, as Boohoo Man always provides you with. I was born, who is this? What Man United player is this? I was born on the 5th of August, 1957. I joined Manchester United in 1997, but never actually played or managed the team. In September 2003, I became chief executive of Manchester United following the departure of Peter Kenyon. I finally announced that I was leaving the club on the 20th of February 2013, the same time that Sir Alex Ferguson left. I was then replaced by Ed Woodward. I'm currently the vice president of UEFA. I know who it is. I think you know who it is. Of course, it is former CEO David Gill, who left the club with Sir Alex Ferguson, of course, in that summer. And what a big impact that was. So thank you very much to Boohoo Man. Check them out through the link in the description or scan that QR code. Get yourself some lovely clobber like I'm wearing here. I love this top. It's really, really nice. Really, really comfy. Okay, let's get on with the show. Lots to get into. Strinny has just gifted 5 memberships. Very generous of you straight away at the start of the show. Sia says they should trim the grass to make the stadium look bigger. I dedicate this super chat to Mojo. He's an absolute legend of the chat. Hashtag praise Mojo. Mojo is an Bobby, Mojo, I was thinking about Mojo this afternoon. What an absolute legend he is. He is. Dell is a member for a month. Says, great interview with Rasmus. Keep watching that interview. keep watching that interview. Actually, if you want to watch that interview, you're in India, it's actually been translated as part of the interview that we did. We asked if we could do this because it was with a United player. So it's been translated into Hindi and Spanish. So if you speak Hindi or Spanish and you want to click on the Rasmus video and change the language, it's a really funny listen, because not because Hindi or Spanish is funny, but because the company that did it for us, they've done it with some sort of AI stuff where when I talk, it sounds like me a little bit. And when Rasmus talks, it sounds like Rasmus a bit in Spanish and in Hindi. It's well worth a listen. I've got no idea what we're saying. It's the same stuff, but do check it out if you can speak Hindi or Spanish. It's well worth going back and seeing what you think. Strini, welcome to the Members Club as well. Shahin says, people say we need a new stadium to succeed, as if Liverpool didn't go through their most successful spell, 130 years Anfield, says Shahin. And there is no way we could ever leave Old Trafford. Too much history. Say it ain't so, say it ain't so, says Scott Stevens. Well, I'm going to get into that straight away, but what I want to just give you a little bit of a hint of what we're going to talk about. If we hadn't have had the stadium announcement today about Man United potentially moving, and I'll give you the detail on that, then there was a story this morning that came out from Rob Dawson right at the end of the morning show that I thought I want to get into. Basically, Man United's finances aren't as good as they could be. So what they want to do is they want to look at players with 1 year left on their contract in the summer, going into their final year, sort of tap into their agents and say, look, we will give you a good deal at United. I've got a little bit of concern about it, but just to give you some, and we're going to go through a lot more, players who are out of contract with 1 year left on their contract in the summer. Son at Spurs, Chiesa at Juventus, Jonathan David at Lille, Zaire Emery at PSG, Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich. So look, there's a lot more. We'll go through them. I have my concerns about it, but it'll be an interesting topic when we start talking about it. Would you do that, by the way? Because I just realised a lot of people don't watch. A lot of people will watch this when they're not live. So to be interactive, because we're very interactive with the live chat if you're watching, let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. And also let us know about this next bit. Strini says, it's my birthday. One of the reasons I started supporting United when I learned about what happened on this day. Lots of love from South Africa, says Strini. Love that, Strini. Small part of me says a new stadium, but in reality, Old Trafford needs to be where we stay. It's where United belongs, says Coach Claymore. Right, let's hit this story, though. So, look, I was surprised by this today because today is the 6th of February, and every United fan who knows about this football club takes a moment on this day, because everything in the present doesn't really matter as you go back to 58 and what happened that night and what happened in the following years and the rebuild of the football club. It becomes not about the today, it becomes about the past. So I was very surprised to see an article come out today about moving out of Old Trafford. And part of me did think, you know what, if we were exclusively owned by the Glazers, I think there would have been uproar about that, to be honest. And I think that, look, you can't blame the Glazers and you can't blame Ineos for that story coming out. It's been leaked out or whatever like that. I don't think they would in any way want that story to come out today. But it's out there and it's generated a lot of conversation. And I look at the poll, new stadium, stay at Old Trafford, 53% stay at Old Trafford, 47% new stadium. So let's give a little background to this because it came predominantly from the Telegraph and then the Mail later on today. Basically, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's in a hurry as he looks to build a huge legacy at Manchester United. Old Trafford wasn't selected as a stadium for Euro 2028, which shows you what the rest of footballing in this country thinks of Old Trafford. We all know it's rusting, etc. And basically, a source has said to the Telegraph that they're confident that fans would be happy to accept a brand new stadium if it was on the same site as, you know, round the back of the Stretford end where there's a massive big space there. Look, I have an opinion on this, as you have an opinion on this. I'm going to say from the start, just to be pragmatic, we might not have a choice in this. Old Trafford has been left to rot for too long, in my opinion. The cost to rebuild it into something spectacular would probably, I suspect, be more expensive and more difficult and more take longer than building a brand new stadium. And what I mean is, if Man United had a piece of ground and the money, you can build what you like. You know, there's basically a flat piece of ground. You can build what you like, and you can start building it now. and you don't have to play anywhere else. You just can build it. So I get all that. And I also get that some people like the idea of a new modern Wembley of the North stadium. I get that. And I'm going to be pragmatic and play devil's advocate before I give you my opinion. It will be cheaper, it will be quicker, and it will be easier to build something from scratch. Absolutely. If you think about, I don't know whether any of you have ever, played with Lego or something and it falls on the floor into lots of different bits. You can't remember where they went. You're better off with a brand new box in the book and starting again. So I get that. I do get that. Yeah, completely understand that. And obviously it would be very, very impressive because it's Manchester United. It's probably going to be 100,000, 95,000, something like that. So I don't have a problem with people who want a new stadium. I really, really don't. And it may well be on the same site, and it could be revolutionary and it could be state of the art. Yeah, of course it could. I get all of that. But absolutely no. Not for me. Absolutely no. And I'll explain why. Because if people have religion and they go to the mosque or they go to the church or wherever people go for their respective religions, I feel, and I don't even get to go as much as I would like to go, but I've been enough. And every time I walk up them steps and you get your first glimpse of the stadium, and I hope in your life, those of you who've not done it, do it. And I hope you get to do it at Old Trafford. Every time you do, you take a breath in, you get all the smells, etc. But that is special. It doesn't matter whether you're playing Sheffield United at home or it's a European night in the Champions League. It's such a special feeling. It's my church. That's what it is. Old Trafford, when I'm down there, and look, I'm down there quite a lot when I'm at the stadium. I always go down to Old Trafford. I always have a walk around and stuff, because even when they're not playing, it's Old Trafford. And I grew up watching videos with my granddad about the story of Man United, the aftermath of 58, and all this old footage of that Old Trafford. It is that ground. It's not like, oh, we've rebuilt this, we've rebuilt that. That is Manchester United. Old Trafford is Manchester United. And if you move it, knock it down to move it, it's not Old Trafford anymore. Look, a lot of Arsenal fans like the Emirates. A lot of Arsenal fans wish they were still at Highbury, because Highbury had a history, it had an atmosphere, and the Emirates is a modern stadium that they're proud of, but it's not Highbury. Will Liverpool leave Anfield? I don't think they will. I don't think Liverpool will leave Anfield in my lifetime. I don't think they will. I think if you're Man City or you're Tottenham or someone like that, then, but to be fair, Main Road, White Hart Lane ain't fucking Old Trafford. Old Trafford to me is, I personally think Old Trafford, in the UK, we have listed buildings that can't be knocked down. We have pubs and all sorts of things that are on listed buildings. I think Old Trafford should be a listed building. I think it should be protected. I know it will be longer, and I know it will be more expensive. And the cynic in me completely understands whether it's Sir Jim, whether it's the Glazers. And look, remember, it's not Sir Jim, it's the Glazers as well. They own more of the club. This is not a footballing decision. This is a stadium decision. Is Sir Jim fronting a decision that the Glazers didn't want to make because they knew it would be unpopular? I mean, have you ever thought of it like that? Maybe this is what the Glazers wanted to do all along, but they just won't announce it until Sir Jim's there so that he can take a bit of the pressure as well. Maybe because Sir Jim fronts it when the Glazers wanted this all along. Have you ever thought of it like that? You can get cynical if you want, but I don't choose to get cynical. I don't have a say in this. And when the source says that fans will be happy to accept a brand new stadium if they stay in the area, I don't think we have a choice. What are we supposed to do? If the Glazers and Sir Jim say we're moving to a new stadium, what are we going to do? We couldn't get the Glazers out. We're not going to stop them building a new stadium. It'll happen. I'm not sitting here saying, chain yourself around Old Trafford. I just don't want it to happen. It may well happen, but I just do not want it to happen. It's not like Glazers out for me. It's just, I just don't want Old Trafford. I love Old Trafford. It should be a listed building. It is my church when it comes to football, and I don't want us to leave it. I don't, and I'll be really sad if it happens. I respect people want it to happen. I respect people want a shiny new toy. But the problem with a shiny new toy is, I remember one Christmas, I really, 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 really wanted He-Man toys. No, Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain. I was obsessed with it. And my mum said, what are you going to do with all your Star Wars toys, like the Millennium Falcon and that? I was like, I don't want them anymore. Just give them to the boy down the road. I'm not bothered. She says, but you love them. You've been playing with them for years. I know, but I want He-Man. That's what I want. I want He-Man. That's all I'm bothered about. Get rid of my Star Wars stuff. Anyway, I get the He-Man stuff. I played for it a little bit. And within 3 months, I was back playing with the Star Wars stuff. And I missed it. And that's the danger about wanting something new and shiny. Oh, look at our stadium. It's better than the Emirates. It's better than Main Road. It's better than the Etihad. And then Liverpool, you look at Liverpool with Anfield and you go, yeah, I wish we'd stayed at Old Trafford. So I get it. I really do get it. There's more revenues, as Jeremy said. It's cheaper. Look, at the end of the day, Cynic Bridge again, we are nearly £1 billion in debt. And we've got to cut our cloth accordingly. We've heard that people within the club are going to get made redundant. We've heard about cost cutting. Do you really think they are going to choose rebuilding Old Trafford when it's going to cost more, take longer and be more difficult than something that's going to be quicker and less expensive, that's going to earn them money? I mean, look at it like this. You've got a broken down Ferrari with no engine in the garage. And, you know, it's a collector's item. But it's going to take you 5 years to rebuild it, and it's going to be very expensive. Or you can just go and buy a brand new Ferrari for half the price and have it tomorrow. That's the choice. It's a business choice. And I guarantee you now, if it was cheaper and quicker to rebuild Old Trafford, they stay at Old Trafford. I think that's what it comes down to. I think it's a pure business decision. No United fan is willingly going to walk away from Old Trafford. And I think that, in fairness to Ineos and in fairness to Sir Jim, I think that this decision is about, logically, business-wise, a new stadium is quicker, cheaper, and brings money in quicker as well. And I think that's why they're doing it. Because there's no way in a million years, if somebody said we can rebuild Old Trafford into one of the best grounds in the world, and we can do it as quick and for the same price as building a new stadium, they'd stay at Old Trafford. And that's the sad thing. That's the sad thing for me, is that we're having to do this because we didn't do anything to the stadium for 15 years. Well, 20 years. 20 years we did nothing to Old Trafford. And I tell you what, if we leave Old Trafford, it's on the Glazers. It's on the Glazers. Because if we renovated it from 2005 when they came in and kept on top of it, like they've done at Anfield, we would never have had to leave. But if we have to leave, it's on them. And it mortifies me. It makes me want to cry. Old Trafford having to move, and people say, well, if we move next door, we can keep Old Trafford for the women and the youth. Are you having a laugh? Have you been to Old Trafford? You can't build a new stadium and then keep Old Trafford. It gets knocked down, mate. It gets knocked down. You're not going to keep Old Trafford as a place for the women and the men and the youth to play, because it still needs a load of fucking renovating anyway. So new stadium means bye-bye Old Trafford, and I can't imagine that day watching them take it down. I cannot imagine it. And, you know, a new stadium, state of the art, amazing, but it's not Old Trafford. It hurts to think about it. It really does. But some people will want it, some people won't. All I say is just respect those that do want it and respect those that don't want it, because there's very good reasons. When I look at the old patches, this is a great comment by Tom. When I look at the Old Trafford pitch, I see all the ghosts of the past and I love it. You know, that gives me goosebumps. It's true. Old Trafford is the one thing that transcends generations. Over time, players change, managers change, the board change, but Old Trafford remains and holds all United's history, says Michael Pedley. What if the club decides to build on the site to build a bigger stadium, says Delusional Unicorn? Well, I don't mind that. I don't mind that, but I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll want to build elsewhere. Old Trafford is already Wembley of the North, says Darcy Jones. Old Trafford is history. It's the only thing we have left of the glory days. We should concentrate on the team before we consider a new stadium, says Netflix and Chilwell. The moment I saw Old Trafford was just something else. It was history as class. I went to Man City and it's just dead, no matter how modern it is, says Shahin. Building a new stadium on the site helps us keep Old Trafford to max capacity while we play, which helps with FFP being built on the same plot. Keeps the ethos best in class, has to be built from scratch, says Shahin. You see, I respect it, but I hate the comment, Shahin. you're basically saying, let's keep playing in Old Trafford while we build a new one, and then let's knock Old Trafford down. I hate the comment, but I understand that some people will be happy with that. And the previous comment's right. I've never been to a new stadium and gone, wow. I've been at the Emirates. I've been to the Etihad. They are impressive modern grounds, but they're not atmospheric. I mean, I said this the other day. Stretford End, Dortmund's End, the Kop. What end is it at the Etihad? What end is it at the Emirates? Like, they're not the same. Goodison Park's going next year. You know what? I think I'll shed a tear when Goodison Park goes. I'm not even a fucking Everton fan. I'm distraught that Goodison Park's going. That's my youth. You know, never been an Everton fan, but I love Goodison Park. It's my favourite away. It's always been my favourite away. I'm glad I got to go there once, but, you know, I'm talking about looking at it on the telly, playing on FIFA when you're at Goodison Park. I love Goodison Park. They're going to go into some state-of-the-art stadium that you go, oh, that's impressive. But is it? Is it really impressive? Is there really an impressive modern stadium that makes you go, ooh, look at that? It looks good, but what is it? What is it? It's like West Ham. West Ham Stadium. Oh, my God. Really impressive. I managed there at the Sidemen game. But give me Upton Park every day of the week. There's no atmosphere there. It's got a bloody running track round the edge of it. So I like the tradition, and I absolutely love what it means to me. I'm excited because of the summer. This season has been bumpy. Who would your top 3 transfers be, says Sinead. I don't really have any at the moment, Sinead. I think it's really difficult. We're going to talk about that in a minute, about this, you know, targeting players with 1 year left on their contract, and we'll go through some names there. But I don't really have any top 3 targets at the moment, because I just don't know how ruthless we're going to be in removal. I mean, if we're going to remove 3 centre-backs, then we need to buy 2. The Principality Stadium in Cardiff is built on the old National Stadium, but turned around to enlarge the capacity and add a roof, so it can be done whilst keeping the history and the heritage, has read since 1975. Somebody said today as well, why don't we take bits of the stadium and then move it to the other one? Oh my God. You know, it's like digging a grave up and moving it to another one. You can't do that. You can't do that. The Hyatt Hughes lad, welcome to the Members Club. Is it possible to have 2 home grounds? No, Cade. And I heard that Chiesa would be on the market if it doesn't sign a new contract before this summer transfer window, says Luca. Gems has gifted 5 memberships, moderator extraordinaire. Thank you very much for that, Gems. So I'm all for innovation. Nothing to add to that. I'm in the architectural industry. It's possible to combine nostalgia with cutting edge. It's not all or nothing. Tradition doesn't have to be lost, says Nick P. Stadiums like Spurs with the disco lights, TVs in the back of the seats, all over the top stuff just feels tacky. Keep it simple, says Not Now Dave. We could sell the naming rights and generate even more revenue with a new stadium. Sometimes nostalgia just needs to be put to a side. Oh, Rory. Rory, again, I hate your comment. I respect it. But, you know, I'm not falling out with anybody. But you're right. We can build a new stadium. We can sell it to fucking Ineos or something like that for the naming rights. But look, I couldn't give a shit about the money. I couldn't give a shit about generation of money. This is Manchester United. When I die, and, you know, hopefully Seb and my other kids continue the legacy of supporting Man United, I don't want to sit there going, oh, I'm so glad we knocked Old Trafford down so we could generate money, and the naming rights was masterful. Bye. You know, I don't want that. The fear at the back of my mind is if a new stadium is built, there will be a big auction for naming rights, says Lee Berman. Madrid did it with the Bernabeu. United can do it with Old Trafford, says Chris. Well, I think I hate to say this, but what Liverpool have done with Anfield, and what Real Madrid have done with their place, and what Barcelona have done with the Nou Camp, why the hell are we not doing that? Money. It comes down to money. I completely understand why Ineos and Sir Jim would consider this option, because it's the cheapest and quickest option to do it, to build from scratch. But we're Manchester United. If Real Madrid can do it, and Barcelona can do it, and Liverpool can do it, why aren't we doing it? Some things are more important than money. In 100 years, what's more important? That we're still at our spiritual ground of Old Trafford, or that we've got some soulless stadium that we probably need to knock down again and build somewhere else? I just think some things... We are the only club in English football that have had a youth player on their bench since the 1930s. And we cling on to that because it matters. I think surely you cling on to Old Trafford. Surely you do. Anyway, look, I've had my piece on that. We can't be nostalgic, says God's Will. Well, we can be. 55% of us do want to be. 45% of us don't want to be. All I'd say is, I get it. Some people want a shiny new toy. Spurs are very happy with their stadium. Some Arsenal fans are very happy with the Emirates. Man City are just happy that they, got refounded in 2008 and they got a stadium. But look, and Beth was on about it today. Ricky's an older fan and he said he's not that bothered. So it's not an age thing. There'll be young fans that don't want to move. There'll be old fans that do want to move. It's a very personal thing. I don't want it to happen. I detest the fact that the club was left for 20 years, because if we kept renovate, there was a period of time between the mid 90s and the mid noughties where we were constantly doing stuff at Old Trafford. We were constantly renovating and modernising, and then the Glazers came in and it stopped. Some of you won't be old enough to remember, but from the implementation of the Premier League to 2004, we were constantly doing stuff at Old Trafford. It was, I remember my first time at Old Trafford, unrecognisable to what it is now. Well, I say unrecognisable, it was still four sides, but there's been loads of work done in them first 10, 15 years of the Premier League. The Glazers got hold of us and just stopped it for 20 years. If they just kept doing stuff, but that means putting money in your pocket. So if we have to move from Old Trafford, say what you like about the Glazers, but it's their fault. It's not Sir Jim's fault. It's not Ineos's fault. I think he's looking at it and going, this is the best option financially for the football club. But there's no way he'd want us to move out of Old Trafford. No way. Sir Jim Radcliffe's a local lad. He's a Man United fan. There's no way he wants to take us away from Old Trafford. I just think he's probably got a lot of people telling him financially it could be ruined for the football club if we don't. And maybe that will come out. But you can definitely stay. You can definitely rebuild. It's just massively difficult to do it. Anyway, Barcelona equals Camp Nou. Real Madrid, Bernabeu. Leaving Old Trafford is the same as saying forget the Busby Babe. Let's forget on the new team, says Ricky's grandson. I'm 18 and would be devastated if Old Trafford went, says Daniel Sturtridge. I agree with you regarding Old Trafford. Then they look at the Allianz Arena. Bayern's history lives on. So does their success, says the Hughes lad. But Bayern Munich can go fuck themselves. I mean, what's Bayern Munich got to do with Manchester United? We've already discussed that. Some people want a brand new stadium, but I don't. It's not going to change my mind. I've said what I think. If we have a new stadium, I'll be devastated. But I've got no choice. They're not going to run a poll on it. They're going to do it, and we'll just have to go with it. But I will be very. I won't go kicking and screaming. It's not like I'll just be very, very sad. I'm not in control of the football club. But I'd be devastated by it, really would. It's important to me. For some people, it's not. We can do what Madrid or Barca did because they have other stadiums to move to temporary. Madrid did it during COVID. Barca playing at the Olympic Stadium, says Shahan. Arsenal didn't level Highbury. What if we did something similar? I bet apartments or hotels with a pitch view in Old Trafford would cost a fortune, says Glenny Boy. And Cardiff Arms Park meant a lot to people. They built the Millennium Stadium next door and bought it in much needed revenue, says Durant. Tourist mentality in the chat. Old Trafford is home, says Lewis Davies. Well, let's not get personal because, look, it's around 50-50 anyway. So, look, if you want a new stadium, that's up to you. I've said what I think. Some people agree. Some people don't agree. But I understand why it's happening because we just don't have the money to do it because we've not done anything to the club for 20 years. And now it's going to cost a fucking fortune to do anything to it. And it would be cheaper and quicker to build a new stadium. And that's a horrible situation to be in. And I don't really, I actually feel sorry for Ineos and Sir Jim because they're going to have to make a decision that's, not going to be particularly popular. Financially, they have to do it, I think. Do you think Qatar would have knocked down Old Trafford, says H? Great question. Probably, for the same reason. But we don't know. It's not. That's what I mean. I feel sorry for Sir Jim and Ineos because I don't think there's much choice. But it doesn't mean we have to say we're happy about it. And if there is no choice, we know whose fault it is, which is fucking devastating because they've ruined the club for 20 years. And now their legacy could be that they fucking destroyed Old Trafford as well, which is, a horrible thought, isn't it? It will become the Ineos Stadium, says Chester Photography. Okay. Right. Imagine having to take down the statues as well, says Josh. Yeah, well, the Munich clock. they'll be moved, but it's not the same, is it? Stuart Farron, welcome to the Members Club. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Tim says, we get new players in to add to the history. Stadium's the same way. We aren't abandoning anything because we are what makes Old Trafford. The history is just that. History will never change. I don't really understand what you're getting at, Tim, but I think you did, so well done, and maybe other people did as well. I think you're saying it doesn't matter where we play football because it's Manchester United will live on no matter what. Live on a lot better if you don't knock it down, though, mate. It's like a church, isn't it? You knock it down, it doesn't matter because it still exists in our hearts. Well, it still exists in real if we didn't knock it down. I suggest everyone gets to Old Trafford before it's gone, says Malps. Yes. Okay, let's move on. We've spoke a lot about that, and maybe other people have some other stuff to say. But I want to move it on because, as the title says, Sir Jim's huge transfer and stadium plan. We've spoken about the sorry, I've got to read this. Mark's been a member for 2 months. How dare you move to the United Stand to a new studio? I remember United Stand before the new studio. It's part of life, Mark. Moving on with the time. 150k seats equals dollars. Come on, Mark. You're talking out your arse, and you know you are. Let's move on. Right. So there was 2 parts to this story tonight. Huge transfer plan, huge stadium plan. Huge transfer plan, again, comes back to money. We've just spoken about the stadium there. This myth that there's going to be £400 million spent in the summer is hilarious. Did you do maths at school? Man United are in massive financial trouble. Manchester United, and this is probably the reason why we're going to have to knock Old Trafford down and build a new one. Man United are in massive financial trouble. We're not going to suddenly find 400 million quid in Sir Jim Radcliffe's pocket, and even if he did, he can't spend it anyway. Look at Newcastle. Financial fair play finally does exist. 10 years too late, but it does exist. You can't just pump money into the team to spend on players. You've got to generate that money, and to generate that money is going to be difficult for United because, as we know, financial fair play apparently costs us spending money in January. So, apparently United, they want to have this innovative and ruthless and transformative summer transfer window, but they also want to do it on the cheap, or as cheap as possible. And the best way that they're thinking of doing this is by targeting what I call the Juventus model. Juventus did this quite a lot over the last 5 years. You look at players who are going to be free agents or are 1 year out from their contract, because you're basically a free agent when you're 1 year out from your contract, because clubs will not want them to run it down and go for nothing, and therefore they're either going to sign a new contract or they're going to sell them at a reasonable price. Unless it's Mason Mount, in which case Man United will play over the odds even when he's got 1 year left on his contract. But that's a former system. That's not Ineos, so we can't blame them for that. So, interesting, when you look at what players are available with 1 year left on their contract in the summer, Leroy Sané, Joshua Kimmich, Alphonso Davies, all Bayern Munich players, all got 1 year left on their contract. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know what their injury records are, but I don't really want Alphonso Davies. I think he's a bit of a FIFA player. I think he's a bit overrated on reputation more than he is on ability. You know, might be controversial, but I've always felt that. Kimmich, I would take, 28 years of age. You know, I don't really want to be doing the whole Casemiro Varane thing where you buy players that might be past their best coming in. But I think at 28, Kimmich would be a very interesting player. Leroy Sané, I do like Leroy Sané. The Man City thing doesn't bother me. I just don't know. I don't know whether he's really fulfilled his talent. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, we're not going to get those. Zaire Emery, 17, PSG, 1 year left on his contract. I'd be surprised if he became available. Jonathan David at Lille, 1 year left on his contract in the summer. Not for me. We could have moved for him a long time before now. Why would we go for him now? Chiesa, 26, Juventus. I do like him. Very interesting player. Very interesting player. 1 year left on his contract. Son at Spurs. Look, I'd take Son at 31. 100% I would, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm surprised that he hasn't signed a new contract yet. Neymar, apparently. Not going to go anywhere near him. Conor Gallagher. I don't think United would go back to Chelsea, and they want quite a lot of money for him. Joel Linton, Newcastle, 27 years of age, 1 year left on his contract, apparently. Thuram of Nice is an interesting one because, yet again, it's a Sir Jim Ratcliffe player, isn't it, effectively? Anguissa at Napoli, 28 now. Had a very good season last season. Tony, I think he will go in the summer. Leon Bailey, Aston Villa, 26. Denzel Dumfries at Inter, 27. And Fofana at Monaco, 25. So there are a few in there. There's definitely a few in there. And there's a few... There are a few... Look, as I said, there's a few in there, isn't there? I mean, who would you fancy out of those? Personally, if I had to pick 3 from those that were realistic, I'd probably go Kimmich. I would love Joel Linton at Man United, I tell you. There's just something about him that I think is really, really good. Son as well. But look, there are, the Fofanas. I won't argue about that. And my only issue with this is it's definitely an interesting line of listed players, and it's definitely a sensible thing to do. I've looked at Juventus do this for a few years. Every summer, Juventus seem to do it. And you go, I remember when Juventus did it with Rabiot and Aaron Ramsey. It's not a bad idea to do it. Look at players with 1 year left on their contract and see what you can do. The flip side of it is they can stereotypically be a little bit older. And also, if you're going to get them, you tend to have to give them a lot of wages. So how does that help us? How easy will it be for us to do that when you're targeting people with 1 year left on their contract? They're probably going to have an offer from their current club, which you're going to have to make more attractive. So are we not heading back into the area of overinflated agent fees, overinflated wages again? So look, that would be the age thing would concern me with some of them, and the age and wage. The age and the wage thing would concern me, I think, a little bit. But the right player with the right profile, why would you not look at it? Age and wage is going to be quite. I'm gonna. Remember, I've always said, for years, we've always said on this channel about the summer transfer window, you've got to be ruthless and you've got to be aggressive. You've got to be aggressive to go and get the players you want, and you've got to be ruthless in what you're willing to pay, and also you've got to be aggressive and ruthless in removing the players as well. Well, this summer, I've got 2 more words for you. Wage and age. Really important for United this summer. When you're looking at players going out of the club, what wage are they on? What age are they? So when you look at Varane, massive wages, into his 30. You look at Harry Maguire, 190k a week, into his 30s. You look at someone like Eriksen, into his 30s, probably about 140 grand a week. So you're looking at wage against age and long-termism, aren't you? But you've also got to look at that what you're bringing in. There's no point in going, we're going to remove a few of the older players on big wages, and then we're going to bring in 2 or 3 others. So we've got to be really focused on that, because it all fits into the same thing. We are not that well off financially, and we won't be unless we do some really clever things. Gustav says, hi, Mark. Guirassy has a release clause in July for 17.5 euros. Should we go for him at that price? I'll be honest with you. I know we were linked to Guirassy in January. I was never that in on it, really. I think you've got to do better than that. How long would it take to knock down and renovate, says Daniel. I seem to remember something a few months ago that to build a new stadium would probably take 5 years. And I think to renovate Old Trafford would probably take 8 years. But remember, while you're building a new stadium, you're still playing at Old Trafford. While you're rebuilding Old Trafford, where are you going to play? This is a financial thing. It's heartbreaking. You brought me back in again, isn't you? It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I know we're probably going to have to leave Old Trafford and probably knock it down, because I can see the financials. You build a new stadium, you play at Old Trafford until the day before. You try and renovate Old Trafford, where are you going to play for the next few years? It's horrible. It's a horrible situation, but what can we do? Stuart Farron, thank you very much for your super chat. I'd move heaven and earth to get Kimmich, but rumours are among some Liverpool fans is he's a possible target for them, so don't see us getting him at all, says Jack. Yeah, but Kimmich going to Liverpool with Klopp is very different to Kimmich going to Liverpool with God knows who, and Salah's not there. So, you know what? Who in this? This is why the summer's so important. Who's in the ascendancy? Who's the bigger club in the summer? Liverpool might win the title, but who's heading in the right direction? Old Trafford has over a century of culture and history that will also be lost from the city of Manchester too, says Swordorama. We literally have stadium tours. Most stadium tours are shit. Old Trafford Stadium Tour is not really about the modern. It's about the past, if you've ever been on it. Did you see Sir Jim was at memorial service today, says Giles? Yes, I did. A shame the Glazers weren't there as well. You know, show a bit of unity, considering we're moving into a future, but, you know. Fernando says, Mark, I'm from the States and always wanted to go to a game at Old Trafford. I'm assuming 3 to 5 years to build a new one. I'm sure others are in my shoes, says Fernando Plaza. Stadium name should be Theatre of Nightmares, says Jack Glancy. I know it's off topic, but thoughts on Pellistri, says United Live. Well, he's gone on loan, hasn't he? Thank you very much for those thoughts anyway. So look, yeah, just to summarise that sort of Sir Jim's huge transfer and stadium plan, we spent a lot more talking about the stadium, to be fair. But it's interesting that sort of thinking I'm not opposed to. There might be a couple of bargains that we can get from players who are 1 year left on their contract. And certainly what you would be doing, this is why the director of football needs to be happening. I'm sure it's going to happen either this week or next week. I'm sure they'll make some movement on it because they need to get moving. Because if you are thinking about a Kimmich, you need to be getting into his people. Like, you need to be saying, what's your plans? You know, it's not tapping them up. It's like, you know, if you don't sign a new contract, we're interested. Those sort of things need to be going on because there are some interesting deals that could be done. Waz is going to watch Man United against Fulham. I'm from Australia. Any recommendations, Mark? Says Waz. What sort of recommendations do you want? Pubs? Or what time to get there? Go on a stadium tour? Do it all, mate. Do it all. Have a great time. It's a fantastic. You know, I know it's rusting and I know it's old, but it's still special, definitely. I'm not giving any Villa predictions tonight, Ronald, because we are only on Tuesday, and I'll look forward to Villa a little bit later in the week. There was, I'd nearly forgotten, there is a couple of other things I wanted to bring into you, and obviously if you've got anything you want to ask, we'll get into it. There was a article out today about Al Hilal in Saudi looking to go for Bruno again. Now, they did try in the summer. We spoke last week or at the weekend about a big offer that came again in January. They seem to be very fixated in Saudi on Bruno Fernandes. Now, they are fixated on other players. It's not it's not like they've got Bruno posters on their wall in Saudi Arabia, but he is a player that they want to bring there. Bruno Fernandes is 30 this year. Now, I'm not saying that that's old by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that Bruno Fernandes can play on for a lot longer. And to me, he feels like he's the wrong type of player that would... The thing that's always impressed me about Bruno is his mentality and his determination to play football. I mean, he's like a bloody robot, isn't he? I don't think anybody's played more football than him in the last 12 months in the whole of Europe. So targeting Bruno Fernandes is interesting, but he doesn't strike me as the personality that wants to go and play in Saudi Arabia. I think Bruno might want to go and play for Barcelona if we wanted to sell him, or Bayern Munich. But I don't think if United say we want to sell you, he'd want to go to Saudi Arabia at 30. I've got to say, even if you want to get rid of Bruno, and I know some of you do, again, I'd be massively disappointed in Bruno if he went to Saudi. There's nothing wrong with going to Saudi. I get it. But I just think there's certain players that do go there, and there's certain players that say maybe in 3 years. I think Bruno Fernandes going to Saudi at 30 would be 3 years too soon. I think he's got more to give at the top level, and I really hope it doesn't happen. But the fact that it would be the third transfer in a window in a row, and you wonder whether the fees and the wages are going up and up and up. There is always a point where somebody goes, look at Jordan Henderson, and there is always a point where a club goes, So I hope it doesn't happen, but it is intriguing that it keeps happening around Bruno Fernandes. But no, I hope it doesn't happen. I think there's so many players. I was reading some of the comments from the show this morning about your top 5 players that you'd get rid of, and I'm not saying these are my top 5, but I'll just name players that potentially could go in the summer, and you see how. Well, let me do it. So, start from the back: Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Maguire, Evans, Casemiro, McTominay, Donny van de Beek, Sancho, Martial, Greenwood, Eriksen. That's 11 players where you can't tell me we're definitely not going to move them on. 11. And then people want to get rid of Bruno and Rashford as well. Come on. I've just named 11 players there that you'd be surprised if most of them were on pre-season. 11 players. I mean, let's be honest, McTominay is not going to go anywhere, is he? He's just not. You're not going to get rid of 11 players. But there's 11 players before you start thinking about getting rid of Bruno. Yeah, and somebody just saying, what about Anthony? But, yeah, there's just so many players that are potentially going to go in the summer. So, yeah, it wouldn't be Bruno. And Lindelof as well, says Marin. Yeah, maybe. Marvin says we shouldn't be selling Casemiro and Varane. It is, you know what? It's there's almost too many players that need to go this summer. And again, it's very, very, very similar to the Old Trafford story, isn't it? We wouldn't need to leave Old Trafford if we'd looked after it over the last 20 years. If we'd renovated it consistently over 20 years, it would be like Anfield. People say we need to leave Old Trafford. You need to understand why. Liverpool, Anfield's no different to Manchester. Anfield's no different to Old Trafford, and yet Liverpool have got no plan of going. They're just building on top, renovating. Liverpool, Anfield, Manchester United, Old Trafford are old, historic focal points of those fan bases, and they're not leaving Anfield. They've got no intention of leaving Anfield. So why are we leaving Old Trafford? Because at Anfield, they've kept on top of it. They've renovated it. They've repaired it. They've kept it modern. They've kept it going. At Old Trafford, we've got to go because it's been left to ruin and rust and rot. There's only one set of people to blame for that. We would not be leaving Old Trafford if we'd looked after it for the last 20 years. That's what we're talking about there. So when you talk about removing players in the summer, I would say when I can list 11 players that might need to go, they're not all going to go. And they probably should all go in some people's minds, but they won't all go. And it's the same thing again. We've accumulated too many players that need to go because we didn't get rid of them in previous summers. So now there's too many to go. So even next summer, even next season, we'll still have players where some of you are going, we should have got rid of in the summer. We won't get rid of all the players. We won't get rid of all those 11 players. It won't happen. And that might make some of you happy or sad. But this is, again, it's a legacy of the previous way we've run the club. How many summers have we watched and gone, we need to get rid of 4 or 5 players, and then you don't get rid of any of them? And now we're in a position where there's too many. It's the open heart surgery, like Ranić said, isn't it? What are your thoughts on Mike Keegan's top 5 centre-backs from the Premier League, says Sword? Honestly, Mike Keegan's a journalist who's done a great job around the sale, but why would I care about his top 5 centre-backs from the Premier League? I'm sort of missing the point there. I don't really care about Jamie Carragher's top 5 centre-backs in the Premier League, so why would I care about Mike Keegan's? I don't know. I don't know what the point of that is, Sword. I'm more interested in your top 5 centre-backs than I am Mike Keegan's or Jamie Carragher's. I don't really understand. Are you interested in my top 5 centre-backs in the Premier League? I don't really get why I'd give a shit about that. It's not going to keep me up tonight anyway. How about renovating Old Trafford? How renovating Shahin, sorry. How renovating Old Trafford takes years. Japan built the entire country in 1 year after tsunami, says Shahin. Yeah, but work regulations in the UK are very different to Japan. You've got to have your tea break. You've got regulations. You know, you can't build on a Sunday and a Saturday. Yeah. We ain't quick over here at getting things done. They're building a fucking railway line, HS2. I think they started planning that in the 1800s. It's still not built. Hi, Mark. I love the community and the mixed opinions we all have on the new stadium. Don't forget, we've done it before. We left Clayton in 1910 and went to Old Trafford. Yeah, Stuart, I get that. But in my mind, there's no correlation. You know, we used to have a different... We didn't used to be called Manchester United either. What's the most important part of our history? we're remembering it today. It's the Munich tragedy. It's the Busby Babes. Where did they play? Old Trafford. Where did we rebuild the football club from that tragedy? Old Trafford. Old Trafford's not a football ground. It's way more than that. The ghosts of the past live on and play there. We shouldn't be leaving it. But if we do leave it, I don't blame Ineos and I don't blame Sir Jim. I blame the previous ownership who've let it rust and rot. And I look at Anfield and go, how are they staying there? How are Real Madrid staying at their ground? How is Barcelona staying at their ground? Because they've looked after it. They've renovated it. They've kept it going. You leave something to ruin, it's very hard to repair 20 years later. This will hurt me leaving the Old Trafford. I'm already tearing up, says Tusha. You and me, Mo, I'll be absolutely devastated. Absolutely devastated. There was something else I wanted to talk to you about. Yes, I think I saw it this morning in the Manchester Evening News. Actually, some I don't know whether it was a comment or from a source or something, but it was basically saying that I think it was coming from a source that it's not been lost on senior sources at Manchester United that Erik ten Hag has proved them right when he was saying that when I've got my best players, you'll see a difference with Manchester United. And as I say, it might only be a glimpse, but I do think that Wolves and West Ham game have justified Ten Hag's insistence that when he gets his best team out, you'll see a different Manchester United. The counteract to that is, well, what a good coach should be able to do it without. It's a nonsense. I've been saying all season, whenever we make subs, the drop-off is incredible. How many times have you seen Man United make subs after 60, 70 minutes and the game falls off a cliff? We don't have enough players to play the way that Ten Hag wants to play. It goes back to what I was just talking about there. We probably need to let 11 players go. If we need to let 11 players go from the first team, no wonder when Ten Hag makes subs, we drop off. Because some of those players are coming on the pitch for Man United who shouldn't be here. So I have sympathy with Ten Hag. I think he's absolutely spot on. I think when he gets his best 11 out, we see a different Man United. But we get an injury, we have to make a sub, and it drops off. Which is why the summer's so important. And what we need over the next few years, months, with this team, is we need to bring in more players like Rasmus, and we need to bring through more players like Mainu and Garnacho. That has to be our future. That has to be the blueprint, because Ten Hag's definitely made mistakes on signings. I want Ten Hag to stay and I like Ten Hag, but Ten Hag has definitely made mistakes on signings. There's one area I look at it and go, that's a learning curve. His signings haven't been good enough. But in fairness, he's never had a structure above him. He's never had a director of football that... I mean, look, the example I always use is a decent director of football would never have allowed him to buy Onana. Whether you like Onana, whether Ten Hag likes Onana, that would never happen under Ineos. It will never happen again, because they'll say to him, you've got a goalkeeper who's just won the Golden Glove, who is very influential in the dressing room, is very well liked in the club, and is still in his prime. You want to let him go for nothing and me to replace him with a £50 million goalkeeper that's never played in this league before just because he can use his feet better? Forget it. Forget it. This is not happening, Eric. This is not happening this summer. What you do is you stick with David for another year, and maybe next summer we can talk about it. But we're not doing it now. Even saying it back to you, Eric, it's ridiculous. You want me to get rid of David De Gea for nothing and spend £50 million on a player that might not even be as good as him just because he's good with his feet? That's the plan. Yeah, no, that's not happening. And that won't happen under Ineos. That will not happen. But it will happen under the previous regime, just the same as it will happen that will pay stupid wages and give out stupid contracts and pay way over the price for everybody. But those days are gone. And yes, Ten Hag, some of the signings haven't worked, but some of them wouldn't have happened under this current regime. I don't think we buy Mason Mount last summer either. I don't. I was saying to somebody when I was out on Friday night. I said, we were talking about the Onana one, and I said, I don't think we buy Mason Mount either. And they were like, oh no, you probably do because he's British. I said, no, I don't think Ineos would buy Mason Mount. Or if they did, they'd get the price down. because you don't spend £55 million on a player that's just had a bad season and only has 1 year left on his contract and won't sign a contract. They got United balls in a vice. We should have put Chelsea's balls in a vice. We would not pay £55 million for Mason. I guarantee you, if it was this summer and Ten Hag said, I want Mount, and Ineos went, right, leave it to us, we'll go and sort the deal out, and Chelsea said 55 million or no deal, Ineos would say he's got 1 year left on his contract, he's not signing a new contract, we'll give you 40 million or we'll walk away. And they'd have got the price down. We had our pants pulled down twice last summer, and it won't happen again. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I think Ten Hag has proven that with his best team, there is something to build. But I think also you'd have to concede as a Ten Hag fan, recruitment hasn't been as good as it could have been. I think there's been some really good signings like Casemiro, Martinez, Rasmus, Eriksen to a point. But the Anthony deal, the Onana deal, and the Mount deal, even though I like all three players, the actual deals I don't think would have got signed off this summer. So there's improvement. There has to be. We can't all sit here and say Ten Hag's perfect. I want to keep Ten Hag, but I want him to have a structure above him that stops the mistakes of last summer and the summer before. That's the future. That's the future, isn't it? If Man United start building a new stadium on the parking lot, where are half of the people going to park? I'm sure they can find some parking spaces, Theo. We need to break Old Trafford down and build a new stadium at the same place so our legacy stays on. Same exact place. It would be difficult to renovate it and be world class. The trouble is with that is that if you knock it down and build it on the same place, you've still got the same problem as renovation. Where are you going to play for 4 or 5 years? That's the problem. I think they're thinking if we build it over here, we can keep playing here, then we can shut that down, knock it down and play here. And you don't lose any money. It's all about money. I won't forget the Murta Madness propaganda, says Mario Franco. Well, there's people out there that think they know more than they do. And they start championing something and then they look really silly. But, you know, I'm talking about all these ITKs on Twitter, in the nose. All these bloody, you know, who knows? Faceless Twitter accounts that just come out with shit about Murta Madness. And but the thing is, though, I sort of sympathise with him in a sense, because I remember that there were summers, and if you must remember, there were summers where people were going Woodward madness. Woodward, you remember that? There was a GIF of the doors opening, Woodward walking in like a boss. So we're all desperate for positivity, and we've all made those mistakes, of course. I think we're all just desperate to get back to where we want to be, and we want to believe the good, don't we? We do. I'm very positive around United, but I've got to be honest. I could have done without. You know, today for me, and I think most United fans, is a time for reflection. February the 6th every year is a time for reflection. You read about all those players you know about. I mean, look, I've got Duncan on my shoulder, my Duncan Edwards book. But I was, you know, I look at it quite a lot. But today I had about half an hour, and this book is, I don't even think you can get this book anymore. My granddad had it years ago, and it's called Duncan Edwards: The Full Report. And this is why I support Manchester United, because my granddad was obsessed with him. I've visited his grave a few times in Dudley, that's where he's from, which is north of Birmingham. And, you know, died ridiculously young. The only player that Sir Bobby Charlton ever felt inferior to, one of the greatest players that ever played the game. And I thumb through it occasionally through the year. But today I just had half an hour. And basically it's every game he played for Manchester United. And there's just loads of pictures in there. And the thing is, it's not like he played well every game. Like, you know, you look at this one, West Brom 1, Manchester United 4, 24th of December 1955. A dazzling first half display was United's best of the season, with the home side totally bewildered. And it's just loads and loads of match reports, and yeah, and that's what today is for me. That's what today is for me. So I'm a little bit taken aback. Not in a critical way, just in an honest way. I'm a little bit taken aback that on this day, stuff comes out about leaving Old Trafford, this should be coming out tomorrow. It shouldn't be coming out today. But so it's left me feeling a little bit. I've got all the emotion of, because my granddad's no longer with us, and it's about the Busby babes, it's about the Munich tragedy, of course it is, but your mind wanders to other areas. That's the way it is, and it makes me think about my granddad and why I support Man United. So it's quite an emotive day in many different ways, and then to have all that reflection and emotion, and then hear that, oh, we might be leaving Old Trafford, you're like, your heart sinks. It really does. If you have the same opinion as me. I mean, for some people, I think their heart rises, they get excited. With the stadium, the cost of rebuilding, renovating is separate financials and wouldn't be limited by FFP. Old Trafford forever. Yes, it will cost more and take longer, but it's worth it, says Rick Weem. Well, it'd be interesting actually, because if they're gonna liaise with fan groups, they're gonna liaise with the traditional fan groups, aren't they? Like the Man United Supporters Trust, the Fan Forum, and it'd be interesting to see what those traditional groups have to say. And whether they get listened to, I don't know. Anyway, look, fantastic show tonight. I always like the 8 o'clock shows when there's no midweek games, because we get to have a little bit more of a chat about stuff, and you've been fantastic as always, respectful, and as somebody said before, they love the community because there's lots of different niches and ideas and conversations, and that's what it's all about. We've never shirked the conversations, and there's never any. The great thing about this community is there's never any definitive this, is there? Even when a lot of people wanted guitar, there was still a lot of people that wanted Sir Jim. There's people who want Greenwood back. There's people who don't. There's people who take Sancho back. There's people who don't. And there's people who want a new stadium, and there's people who don't. And that's the great thing, which always makes me laugh when, as a community, we get called negative because you don't watch it. You can't watch it because there's never really any topic that doesn't get both sides or debated. So how can it be definitively negative or even definitively positive? Let's flip it the other way. It can't be, because we tend to talk about both sides and others. Continuation to my previous comment, can't we play at a nearby stadium, be pragmatic and play at Etihad for a bit, or Wembley? Or maybe you suggest a good stadium until we build a new stadium. The build process would be fast, says Ashish. I wouldn't care about playing at the Etihad. I don't know whether Man City would, but that's about the only stadium that's close enough that you could play Man United home games at. It's such a shame that we let it. It's such a shame that we let it rust for 20 years. Because what you should do is you close one area of the ground down, and you have a reduced capacity, 3 sides, while you fix that. Then when that's fixed, you do another one, and you just gradually keep going around the ground. And you build it. That's what they're doing at Anfield. You just gradually build on top, close that bit. That's what you're meant to do. But unfortunately, we've let it all crumble, which is just unforgivable if we have to leave. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash the like on the video and subscribe. And if you want to go and listen to the Rasmus interview, I would suggest just go and do this, because if you've already watched the Rasmus interview, that's great. But as I was saying, if you go on the Rasmus interview and you click the settings tab and you go to the language, you can listen to it in Hindi or in Spanish. Now, most of you won't know Hindi or Spanish, but the thing I find fascinating about it is because as part of the interview, we had a company that said they could do this for us. The AI voice they've used to translate it sounds a little bit like me. And then when Rasmus speaks, it sounds a little bit like him, but we're speaking Hindi and Spanish. So I was listening to it today. I don't even know what's being said, but I'm like, that's what I'd sound like if I spoke Spanish. So check it out if you're interested in that sort of thing. And maybe if you're Hindi or Spanish, you could tell us what the translations are actually like. Anyway, take care, everyone. You've been great. I will see you in the morning, of course. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you a little bit later. Don't forget, Boohoo Man, get the code Goldbridge. Get on the website, get yourself some fantastic clobber like this, shipped to your door. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Savage is off to listen to it. I'm going to go and listen to it again as well.